Okay, so we're on the hour. Welcome to Teams Fest, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon to wherever you are from, and really appreciate for the organizers, Chris, Vesku, Chris, and Adam. And so thank you for having me here. And my session's about you got Microsoft Teams, and now let's build the modern intranet on SharePoint, and especially with the conditions of this year, there's obviously a lot of growth on Microsoft Teams. So this session is around 30 to 40 minutes. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat window, and do appreciate that just to be nice to each other, because this is a 100% community event. And so we want to try and avoid any kind of conflicts or profanity or any kind of any form of discrimination, really. So sit back, relax, and much of the presentation is demo based. A few introductory slides, and then obviously some reference slides as well, so that you can take away at the end of the session things that you need to be aware of and be able to build a successful intranet as well. So just before we go into the presentation, a bit about myself. I'm Chirag Patel. I live and work in London, UK. I've been working with SharePoint for a number of years, and over the years I've evolved working with a variety of other Microsoft technologies, mainly cloud-based, Microsoft 365, or formerly Office 365. And so much of my work tends to be working with the Microsoft partners in the UK, and generally covering deployments, migrations, working with Microsoft Teams, and basically everything within the field of IT Pro. I'm also an organizer as well as for the Microsoft 365 meetup in the UK virtual group. So you can find all my details, social media, everything else on techchirag.com. So any questions, then feel free to drop me. If I can't answer them today, then obviously I will try and point you in the direction of somebody who knows the answers to that. In my spare time, if I do get any, I enjoy speaking and really just sharing my experiences, any new things I learn. And these are some of the events I've spoken at, for the past number of years. And so, do check them out. They do go on virtually, albeit at the moment. And there is just plenty of content, training, best practices to learn from. So I tend to share my slides and also the recordings when they become available on my blog site. So feel free to take a look at that. And I generally talk about anything to do with Microsoft 365 and including Power Platform and everything else. So that's briefly just about me. So when we look at the last few years, and again, what was announced in Microsoft Ignite a few weeks ago, yes, Microsoft Teams is the hub for collaboration. That's where all the teamwork is happening. That's pretty much where we spend much of our time every day, working through our chats, calls, meetings, and also working with other third-party applications and everything else. But when you look at the numbers side of things, and with Teams, especially in the kind of over 75 million daily active users, and that's, you can almost say that Teams is obviously backed by SharePoint because of the the number of files and all the other collaboration experiences that live inside SharePoint. So it's kind of fair to say that that figure obviously is around that same sort of figure. So whether we use SharePoint or not, but certainly the file experiences we do. But for those new organizations who have come onto Microsoft Teams, may not be fully aware of the actual general functionality that you have available within SharePoint. But versus you have on the other end, where a lot of the organizations are still using on-premises versions of SharePoint. They probably use third-party intranet solutions, not just for on-premises, but also for SharePoint Online. And so there are a lot of kind of investments that go into making those intranet more applicable for the organizations. So bear in mind that these numbers, they're only set to grow. And I think the expression of Jeff Teeper there just shows that, this is not over by any way. There's a lot more to go. So, it's kind of just exciting times for SharePoint intranets in terms of what's on offer. If Microsoft Teams, like I said, it's team, hub for teamwork, for collaboration, then SharePoint really is all about content collaboration. So yes, it is a content management system, but at the root of it, when you look at it, yes, it's files, it's pages, whether that's news posts as well, they're all web pages. You have various type of lists, and then recently you got Microsoft Lists that got released, which is built on SharePoint List. You got then obviously various type of SharePoint sites, which essentially is a website, and you're able to customize those as well by using tool sets such as SharePoint Framework to your heart's content in terms of developing bespoke solutions for your SharePoint. And then obviously you've got the knowledge network side of things, in particular with Project Cortex, and also SharePoint Syntax that got announced and is now available as an add-on to purchase to kind of really use that artificial intelligence, machine learning experiences. And last but not least, the videos. Up until now, and it's still obviously in the transition, you have all your meeting recordings, the videos residing in Microsoft Stream, which is a service from Microsoft 365. And now all that is going to come over to SharePoint, which basically makes it really great from intranet perspective as well as extranet or other scenarios to be able to share your videos to anybody else or even the guests for that matter. So really SharePoint at the heart of it is, in my view, kind of 7 things that really what it does. Now, how you evolve that into your services and intranet is the focus of this session. But obviously you can do your other collaboration aspects, your document management, as well as your other experiences, build applications on top of SharePoint as well with integration of Microsoft Teams. So you can do a lot more with SharePoint, and not everything has to be in Microsoft Teams, although that is the single pane of glass where we would like to do everything within Microsoft Teams. But you will see in the session that there is a lot more you can turn into from SharePoint to bring those experiences into Microsoft Teams. But from a user's perspective, and yes, there are a lot of there's a lot of research out there. There's a lot of great articles out there in terms of what intranets are and their adoption rates, their successes and their failures. You name it. And obviously, I don't intend to go into any more detail on that. But for me, in terms of whether you're an end user or a senior leader or everybody in between, managers or anybody, for me it's all about culture. And sometimes culture is not really defined. It's not something that you can define as such as to how you would align your intranet to make it more of a successful solution. And especially in this day and age where the workforce is constantly changing, moving, people come and go. And so how do you try and make sure that your intranet is still aligned to every single user? And that's almost a full-time job just to try and be around with that. But what makes it more practical is really to understand the outcomes that every role in the organization is trying to achieve. And in a broad sense, if we can try and get that to that magical answer, and you can do lots of activities through that to understand, whether it's card sorting or any other techniques to understand, what intranet is going to be used for, and primarily is for communication, disseminating information, posting news, comms, all those, wonderful things. But more importantly, also the second reason is you don't want a technology that's just going to become very much out of date, or even go and get locked down with your third-party intranet solutions, where potentially you may get locked into their bespoke frameworks of intranet solutions that's built on SharePoint Online. And really the key here is to be able to get the best of the tech, latest updates, and really be able to access your intranet on any device or any platform for your mobile, whether it's iOS or Android. And then Last but not least, the third reason why you would really need it is it's really just to drive your day, because yes, you can tap into Microsoft Teams every day, and you kind of just be part of your channels, your projects, your teams, whichever chat spaces you're a member of. But at the end of the day, for anybody who wants to just find out what's going on in the organization, then SharePoint intranet is the best place for it. That's where you kind of going to really understand the page of everybody else in terms of what's going on, and what people are working on as well. So hopefully that kind of gives you the broad overview of sense. And Microsoft have done a great job over the years. The documentation was very poor around the intranet side of things. The link is over there. They've got some real good examples in there to set the differences between traditional intranet versus what the modern intranet is. So do take a look at that. Very quickly, with any system that you put in place or any service, there has to be a governance around it, and these are just some of those point of area to consider. Whether you at the organization level you have something that's called a home site, or whether there's functional portals. You can have various levels of governance, but to keep it simple, these are the kind of, at the minimum, you should be thinking about in terms of what is your intranet going to do for your workforce. And so you cover things like the policies and guidelines in terms of who can create SharePoint sites, who can manage the theming, the branding side of things, managing roughly parts of the sites. So all those things, and again, the link there you have and walks in through the great detail around what each of those headings should be comprised of, and some of the approach that you can use to get your intranet governance sorted from day one before you even kind of go on to that. The main thing here to bear in mind is that obviously, yes, a lot of this is technical jargon in terms of the components of what your intranet should look like. It's not just SharePoint, but also you got things in there like Yammer for your communities and conversations that goes on in that environment, but also integrating through your other third-party type connectors, but obviously forms and stream as well. So kind of bringing all those various Microsoft 365 services together in all that single kind of page environment, if you like, to be able to build that rich pages and all those things. So we'll look at each of those in a sec. But again, bearing in mind that if you want to look that what this looks like, then you have something that Microsoft have released, is something called SharePoint Lookbook. So if I look in there, in fact, let's just jump onto that now. So if I go over to that, there we are. So if you go into the Microsoft site, lookbook.microsoft.com, this always gets updated with latest designs and so forth. So here I've got various examples of the designs that I can try and understand what's the art of possible with the SharePoint intranets. And here I can view various designs that are on offer. So for example, if I go into organization level here, I've got a couple of things here: perspective, crisis communications. If I go into solutions, then I've got other things here as well. So let's pick new employee onboarding hub. So kind of roughly tells me what kind of features this solution has, what kind of layouts, backgrounds, and all those things. What particular web parts are used, which we'll look at that in a sec as well. And roughly you can just kind of go ahead and try it out on your tenant. Now, obviously, if you've got a test environment, then it's good to do it on that. If you haven't, and you really want to have a look if this solution is going to work for you, then you can still take a look at that. In this case here, it kind of gives me a brief details around, this is the, my tenant that I'm using as an example demo. These are some of the SharePoint sites that will be created. In this case, because it's an onboarding, so you got onboarding, pre-onboarding, and all those things in there. So it'll create roughly 4 SharePoint sites. I can go and choose if I have a custom branding or theme. In this case, I've got one. So it detects already from my tenant that I've got something called Chirag theme. So I can just go ahead and provision that itself. Obviously, there are some prerequisites to be met over here at the SharePoint platform level, you need to enable something that's called app catalog in order for this service to then work. So, this will take roughly, as it says, approximately 20 minutes. It tells me what it's going to create. I can just go ahead and say, yeah, I like what I see there. And then we'll come back later to the end of the session here to see if that's kind of finished. But this is a very quick way to kind of really display and understand some of the intranet solutions that you have available out of the box without customizing anything to your environment. So when you look at the elements of what the information architecture should look like, and all information architecture is meant to address is how one finds their way around your intranet, finding your place. Now, these are kind of the 6 main areas, give or take. There might be other areas if you want to get really specifics into some of the intranets. But the main part, as we all know, navigation tends to be the best part to really understand how to design that. And they come in various levels, from the organization wide at the global level called the global navigation area, as well as individual sites level, and then the hubs within that, which are a group of or collection of sites that share not just the navigation, but also the search experiences as well. And then you got the metadata labeling of it. So whether you want to create properties for your pages or attributes for your files as in columns, you can do all those things and then use the web parts to be able to surface those filter-based views on your pages. So kind of that's pretty much as far as I wanted to go with the slide side of things. So we'll look at this in more detail now. So let's just head over to the navigation side of things. So if I go back to my first tab here, so this is what you see here is a home site, and home site is something that you only get one of every organization in your tenant, which can be basically created through some brief PowerShell scripts, no customization required over there. Your IT pro can do that. But when you look at this, it's just a SharePoint site. And essentially there are 2 types of them, communication site and a team site. And the difference there very quickly is team site is associated with a Microsoft 365 group that has got the teams and as other rich functionality for teamwork. This particular site is a communication site. The navigation in this case usually stays at the top of it. And as I hover on it, you can see that, in terms of the modern responsive, the kind of modern menu systems, if you like, it's using mega menu within that option there. So you can see that for any communication site that you create, you can go into your settings if you're a site owner and really kind of go into that change the look area. And there you have the 2 options. So really kind of 2 to 3 clicks to get to there and be able to then organize your menus accordingly. So in this case, mega menu set, so which is what we just saw briefly. About all you can also do cascading as well, so you can change the layout for that into different drop downs of sub menus. And so your navigation for your site lives in that area. If I go into a particular site here, so if as I scroll down, everything that you see here is made up of web parts. If I go into edit, which you don't really need any other software or authoring tools, but here within this home page here, I've got kind of various things that goes into it. So if I click on the plus icon there, I can organize my layouts into various column formats and choose particular area. In this case here, it's using one column. Once I've got my sections in there, then I can add a number of web parts within that as well. So I can just hover on here and then expand on that particular area, and then obviously go into my web parts. So these are essentially widgets of the site that makes up that page experience. So kind of, you got various services, document library, hero web part, which is the one that's using these pictures here. You can bring forms, Yammer community, and all those things. And each of those web parts has got its own configuration properties, which you really don't need to customize any further on that. We look at a couple of examples when we do create a page later on. But you can scroll down, and I think one thing to bear in mind when you build the intranet is not to overload your page with a lot of these web parts here. So you can see there's the Yammer conversations there. There is the customized version because it's on the home site. You can have your my sites, my news all listed in this particular page here. So you can bring all this kind of rich experiences at the landing page level for all the users in the organizations to access from anywhere within their site. So here you can see that in terms of the URL you have is just that flat URL. So it's not kind of going any particular site for that matter. And then anywhere from within the site, you can click on Contoso Electronics and it takes you to that landing page from wherever you are. So home site navigation is really kind of how you organize in terms of what tools does your users use, or you might want to organize it by organizations, which is slightly traditional way, or make it more functional depending on what you're trying to achieve from your intranet. If I go into a hub site, to the next one. So within this hub site, I've got a site here called Global Sales. Within this hub site, I have a few SharePoint sites that are associated together. And for those who are kind of, from a SharePoint background, sub-sites is not something that is it's available, but it's not really recommended to go and create those things. So hub sites kind of really takes that to a different level to almost mimic that behavior of what you had before with site and sub-sites, except here the functionality is a lot more powerful in order to have still individual SharePoint sites and not really get into the detail of the hierarchy-based SharePoint sites. So everything is flat. Security is self-contained within each of those SharePoint sites, from full control to visitors. And so when I come to this Global Sales Hub site, then what I see here is that I've got a special menu for the hub menu itself, as well as if I go into a particular site. So if I search over here, then instead of searching the entire SharePoint sites in my organization, this is only going to search through just within this global sales environment. So kind of showing preview quickly that these are some of the news items, files, and then there are 2 additional sites within this hub itself. So if I go into sales and marketing, then typically what you want to do is you might not want to show all your menu structure links to everybody. So let's say, for example, pages here, which is where I can get to all my pages, and this could be any links you want, whether it's your organization or functionals. But if I go and edit this particular link here, then I can actually target to a specific audience who can actually view this particular menu link. So you can kind of tailor around that. So if I just turn that on and save that, so at the moment I haven't really targeted any audience to anybody. I do have another user called Miriam. So if I go over to her browser there, so this is Miriam's login, and if I just grab that URL and go in there, and at the moment she will see all those links, including pages. So the pages is the one we're going to target in a minute. So if I now go back to myself login here, go and edit and just target the audience. So I know there is a group called SOC. So if I just type in here that group, so this is basically a team site member group. That's all I can select. I can select any one of those from this organization that I have, and I can say okay, so target only this link to that particular group of users, and save that. So obviously I will still see that because I'm the owner of this particular site. But if I now go over to Miriam, so that's Miriam there, and if I refresh the page, then that pages link will disappear. So there you go, it's disappeared now, and that's quite powerful. And it's not just at the navigation level that you can target, but you can also target this at the page level. As well as the news web parts that displays, like here one, for example, as well as some of the highlighted content web part as well. So you got like 4 areas to target that, including the navigation for the hub as well. So you can target all these audiences and give that tailored experience instead of giving the clutter to all the users. So if I go back to here, and in terms of kind of understanding your navigation experiences, you can kind of organize that by through any particular users that you wanted to. So whether this is by organization, location, function, it really doesn't matter. It's all about how you logically group your SharePoint sites around that. In terms of the web parts, obviously I can't really go into too much detail just because of the time-wise, but there are over 40 web parts you can have, and there, a lot of them are dynamic. Things like call to action, countdown timers. You can put the background of your images within that, and kind of really make up that page experiences to do that. And you can find every detail for those web parts in terms of what they do on that link over that side as well. And look at the content features in terms of what SharePoint site has to offer. We kind of covered just briefly the navigation, the targeting, but you've also got things like assets library and the organization news levels. You can have a dedicated area for serving news pages for your organization that get labeled specifically to say that these are the official authoritative organization news levels. But also you've got the areas of around creating all these different types of sites there. So if I jump onto my demo, not Miriam, myself here. So if I go into my SharePoint start page, which is one of the areas that, as a landing page, if you like, from a SharePoint perspective, to see what people are working on. These are the news sites that I have permissions to. We'll see those news in here. But here I can also create a SharePoint site. Now, if I have the rights to do that, some organizations lock it down. They even hide that link. But here I can go and create my intranet site, and really two types, as I mentioned earlier. So we'll go ahead and create the communication site, and you can choose the default designs that you have here. I've created one for myself called my template Chirag intranet to site to Contoso works, and this is basically making use of site scripts and site design. So you can actually cover a lot of actions within those scripts. Lightweight development, I would say, but generally the IT pro can actually manage from your organization to be able to create those kind of good looking templates and some of the settings that the intranet site should be having available to that. So here I can just create Teams Fest site in language. I can use English, but I have these languages that I can create as a base, or I can change the language, add additional languages to the SharePoint site afterwards. So I'll just go ahead and create that. And whilst that's doing that, it will take me to the SharePoint site that creates instantly. And within that, it will obviously try and apply the site designs. And if it hasn't already done that, so let's have a look. Will that go? I up that. Sure, I'll pick that. There should have been the bar. Maybe it's done it so instantly within that. That's called Teams Fest 2. And maybe it's just done it so quickly, so it's probably just that. But what I wanted to show, there we goes. That yellow bar appears, and basically all it's saying is that it's applying a site design. Now, I've got a couple of actions here. Firstly, it's saying apply the theme, that I've chosen the theme colors, which again, I can generate that from the Microsoft's theme generator web page. Don't have to enter any code. Choose my colors, gives me a nice snippet of code, which I can then copy it into as part of my scripts to add that site theme. I've also said that I want to add this particular TeamFest 2 SharePoint site to a hub site. In this case, one of my hub sites is Contoso Works, but also I can have a lot more settings, maybe disable external sharing, maybe create a document library or a SharePoint list as a template base for every time I create. So the possibilities are endless around that. And I can just go and click on that to view the updated site. So I chose blue purple as one of the themes. Not a lot going on there, But you can see here that I've got my hub navigation appeared in my SharePoint site dynamically without having to go through those manual steps to join the site to the hub and so on. So, if I go into my Contoso Works, which is a area of another hub site within this organization, which is still a SharePoint site, and then this menu system here is local to this SharePoint site as well. So you got kind of that 3 levels: global navigation, hub navigation, and the local navigation here. So if it's really fast, then it's already picking up Teams Fest as a first site that I created in my search before even typing any keywords. So if I had any content, and as the system is studying through the machine learning signals and everything else, then this search becomes even more powerful. So that was kind of a very quick way to kind of just to see how you can actually create your sites and apply that particular templates to it and dynamically create that as well. So I had a quick look at the targeting side of things from a links perspective, but like I mentioned, you can have news web part pages or targeting specific audiences within that. And in terms of how to, there's a link over there that kind of walks you through that, how you can go about doing that. The next area I want to look at quickly is the SharePoint Spaces, which is in preview. And this is kind of really adding that 3D effect to your SharePoint sites. And really it's kind of a setting that you, as part of your site settings, you enable that feature, site features for spaces, and then you get this functionality available in your SharePoint sites. So if I look at that site here, so if I go into my SharePoint spaces, so I've got one site over here. Nothing different about this site, it's just a SharePoint site. And if I click on new, because I've already enabled that feature, so I can just go ahead and click space preview. And when I do that, essentially, there's a few things I'll do over here. Firstly, I'll create some kind of a background structure, the space design themes, and then I'll go and add some specific space-related, space-centric web parts into my space here. So I'll pick gallery over here as a structure for it. Call this Teams Fest, and let's say product, something like that. Create my space, so it's going to build that environment, kind of give me a raw kind of background, so you can see that it's given me this particular landscape view of it. I can go into my space design, quickly kind of again structure there, my themes. I can pick my background image here, maybe choose this one here. I love Arizona State, so I'll probably pick that one. And I can also choose my audio file as well if I wanted to, if I had one available. Or in this case, I'll just pick one here, maybe a music. And so when I do that, then once I've done that, I can just kind of close that part here. On the left-hand side, expand my web parts. And these are special web parts for spaces you get. So you got image, tools, videos, and all these things. So we'll add a few of these in here. In fact, probably start from right here. So if I add people, I can have my org chart within that, and I can say I'll place that over here. And then within this org chart here, I can say, yeah, I'll put Patty as a starting point for that organization chart, so I can get my quick preview there, and then I'll add another web part in here, document library. So these are documents within this SharePoint site that I have. So again, not going anywhere from this window. I'm still in my same tab. Have I got any documents? Probably I should have done that. Okay. I'm just going to grab some files. Sample docs, office documents. Grab a couple, drop those 2 files in there. Okay, right. Okay, fine, uploaded documents. It's freezing up on me. Okay, there, yeah, there we are. So I've got a few documents, and I had a few documents there before. It's still in preview, so you just have to bear with me on that one. And then I can just add one more now. I'd probably add a 3D one or something. So 3D object, I can go and add in there. And there's a sample of those things available within here as well. So place that 3D object there. I can choose my 3D catalog and pick one. Let's pick a building and pick one, and maybe just take a house or something like that. And that's probably as far as I'll go and stop over there, and then just go ahead and really publish that page, the space itself. So now I'm kind of ready. I can sort of promote that as well if I need to. But once I'm in here, then I can sort of, to my heart's content, just walk around and kind of build this as part of my dynamic intranet experience. If I'm demoing a product, for example, then I can just click on one of those things and then open that particular document into a new tab as well, and then view that. As far as this 3D object goes, then I can turn around if I'm demoing a particular product and so forth. So use that. It works fine on the browser, or you can wear the headsets around that as well. So you can do all those things in a kind of that manner itself. So that's a very quick demo for your SharePoint 3D spaces around side of things. And then if we look at the other areas, so I'll just come back to the slides. I'll stop that music. There it goes. And kind of, if you look at the overall story of the page, this is a common kind of a page publishing. You draft your page, add the page, draft it, edit it, review it, all within that page cycle itself. You can actually configure it through Power Automate to go through some approval if you wanted to, and really kind of just walk around that. And you have the ability for users to like those pages or even comment on them as well, and kind of just build the experience for that commentary around some of those pages within that. The script actions that we had a quick look when I created my Teams Fest sample site, and these are kind of the full list of those script actions you can do, and they're available with good examples that you can actually embed them in building your site templates through these script actions as well. So including the navigation style as well as being able to register any bespoke solutions that you may have. So very powerful through that technique. The best part is that whatever you see on your SharePoint intranet is instantly available on your mobile itself, and that's probably another way of just keeping up to date with your intranet side of things, and not just having to rely on your screens all the time. So typically I tend to look at my mobile a lot for the intranet whilst my team chat space is working there, instead of just switching between the videos itself. The next section of few slides is just kind of really some of the announcements that's been made, and there's a lot more coming. And what was announced a couple of weeks ago at Microsoft Ignite is something called Homesite app. So you looked at the Homesite a few moments ago. That whole experience will be coming to inside Microsoft Teams as a separate icon on your app bar, so that you can actually still visit your SharePoint intranet inside Microsoft Teams. Which is kind of good in a way that it's your gateway to your intranet for that, in order to kind of see keeping everything inside your Microsoft Teams. Then you got those navigation experiences, through the app bar as well. So you got things like the general navigation, but also my sites, my news, and my files. So that whole app bar, you see that within the SharePoint app bar, that's going to come soon. And also the SharePoint site templates. So what I showed you just now was almost a kind of a configurable way to create your SharePoint site templates. But these are some of the things that will come as well. So as an organization, one will be able to create those templates, or at least the ones that are built in, as in that screenshot, will be available to you as well. So look out for that. And then these are obviously the SharePoint sites roadmaps, some of the stuff that's been released recently, but kind of just picking a couple of things in there. is things like around the SharePoint spaces general availability. That's not, that's coming sometime before Christmas, hopefully, but also being able to boost your SharePoint news experiences as well. So kind of really pushing that messaging out through the pages, and also multilingual navigation. So there's a lot more coming there, and then obviously a home site app in Teams is coming next year within that. And then specific links in terms of if you want to find out all those, some of the experiences we had a look at, those are the links in there. Then you can have a look at those, well, more details as to what the home sites are going to be made up of around that. But just quickly, what I wanted to kind of go through was just to see if that site got created that I set off earlier on, and then we can wrap it up this session. So if I go to my, did it start? Provisioning completed. Great. So took probably around 20 or maybe less than that. So now I can just click on that link that I kind of provisioned from the Lookbook, open that in new tab. So that's the onboarding hub. And so if I go in there, so that's what it's done. It's created me a SharePoint site called new employee onboarding. Yes, it's all empty at the moment, but it's also given me this ability that's created this as a hub site, and I can create my hub navigation links within that. If I go into here then and just go in that specific, so there was the sales engineering. So if I go in there and type in sales, if the search has indexed very quickly, or maybe it hasn't. No, it hasn't. Okay, but the idea being is that once you have that, search will have done that quickly, but you can start building your new employee onboarding experience very quickly based on those templates that is given to us. So kind of hopefully that's things. There is a lot more to cover within the intranet side of things, and what I've shown you today is just kind of the key areas to consider to start building your intranet out. And a lot of it is really kind of trying it out, testing out with your users, and then spending that time just to understand if that page looks right. The end point is that every page tells a story. So as long as you achieve that objective, then it doesn't really matter how many sites you've got. You've got a limit of around 2 million SharePoint sites. So just go ahead and create your sites, your organization, what have you around that, and build that intranet experience that works for your organization. Okay, so I think that's basically it, really. Hopefully that's kind of been useful to you, and really appreciate your time for taking out to be here with us at Teams Fest.